times in a free state of our own. That's the vision. That's the dream. We are building it in New Hampshire. I'm Eric Brakey, your host and renegade statesman for the Porcupine Report. Welcome to your source for porcupine news and free-range conversation on matters of liberty. All right, let's hop into the show. Hey there, all you porcupines. This is your host, your renegade statesman, your executive director of the New Hampshire Free State Project, Eric Brakey, coming to you for episode 96 of the Porcupine Report. It's kind of hard to believe. In just 4 episodes, we'll be at episode 100. That's 100 episodes we'll have spent together. I mean, assuming you've been watching since the beginning, or you go back through the archives and you watch the old ones. Anyway, it's a real pleasure to do this show with you every single week, for the most part, Wednesdays at 7 o'clock p.m. This past week, we had a bit of a technical hiccup. I don't know if you noticed, there was a massive, Verizon outage around the country on Wednesday. And anyway, our episode got out a day later than normal. That's never happened before. I can't promise it will never happen again, but we do endeavor to bring you a new episode every single Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m., streaming on Free State Project platforms on X, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and many of your favorite podcasting platforms. So wherever you are engaging with this show, please do me a favor. I would really appreciate it to help boost our engagement and attract new audiences and get the algorithms working for us. Leave a positive comment, share it with your friends. And this is going to be a great episode you're going to want to share, because we're going to have some inside scoops on what's going on some key liberty issues at the New Hampshire State House. We'll be getting to that in a bit. Before we get there, let me tell you about our 2 sponsors for the Porcupine Report. Our first sponsor is... we're recording this in the morning, so I'm really great this time. So I'm really grateful for our sponsor today, which is Porcupine Coffee Roasting. Premium grade coffee beans from all around the world, shipped right here to New Hampshire, roasted fresh, and then shipped right out to wherever you are. Our friends at Porcupine Coffee Roasting are proud sponsors of this program, and they have given us a discount code that you can use for 15% off individual orders. That discount code this is an easy one to remember because it's the name of your favorite podcast. It's Pork Report. 15% off at porcupinecoffeeroasting.com. Wherever you live, if you live in one of those godforsaken tyrannical states like New York or California, they can still ship this coffee right out to wherever you are. So you can have a little bit of that free state spirit energizing you in your cup in the morning, even if you are unfortunate enough to live in a state where freedom is just an idea. Well, check them out, porcupinecoffeeroasting.com, and a little portion of your purchase will go back to supporting this show, which we appreciate very much. And I also want to thank our second sponsor, which is the Independence Inn. The Independence Inn is a great place if you are looking to visit the Free State and you want to take a week for a porcupine vacation to come out and meet all of the different regional Free State communities with all the events that are going on year round. It's like you could literally pick any single week of the year in New Hampshire to come out for a visit, and there will be events going on almost every single day. Opportunities to come out, meet people who share your liberty values, and get a taste of just the community that's being built here. And at the Independence Inn, they've got a great place for you to stay. This is a historic bed and breakfast. They've got a wonderful restaurant there called the Jefferson. The food is to die for. And they exist because they want a place for potential future Free Staters to come and stay and connect with others. So that's why it exists. So you should take advantage of it. That's why our friends at the Independence Inn offer up to 50% off your stay if you call and you tell them that the Free State Project sent you. So do that and visit their website, nhindependenceinn.com, and plan your very own porcupine vacation to the Free State. Those are our sponsors. Thank you to them both. Now let me tell you about some events coming up. Last week, we announced the upcoming 10th annual Porcupine Day, which will be on February 3rd, and tickets are on sale right now at fsp.org/porkday. This is a celebration of Free State Project history. This is 10 years since we reached 20,000 signers and triggered the move. And we're going to be spending the evening in Bedford, celebrating some of that history. And I'd love it if you can join us. And I should make a special note, just a reminder, if you are a Porcupine patron at the silver level or higher, silver level means $250 a year or $25 a month, you are entitled to complimentary tickets to Porcupine Day. So we are in the process of getting kind of those discount codes set up and going. But if you want to collect your complimentary tickets and you are a silver level or higher patron, then just reach out and we'll get you set up. Otherwise, go to fsp.org/porkday and get your tickets. We would love to have you there on February 3rd. And not too long after that, just a month after actually, is the New Hampshire Liberty Forum. Our theme this year is Build Freedom. We are returning to the Grapponi Conference Center in Concord, New Hampshire. Wonderful facilities. We were there last year. It was our first time there last year. Wonderful facilities. A great place for a conference. We are every single week we're announcing new speakers that are signing on and coming out, both local people who are doing very innovative things to build freedom and speakers coming in from around the country to talk about ways to build freedom. In some cases, we're talking to some speakers who are coming in from out of the country to build freedom. So you're going to want to join us for this. We are bringing back the dialogue format where you have expert liberty builders who are in particular areas who are going to be talking about innovative ideas to build liberty, doing a presentation on that, and then taking direct feedback with a small group on ways to improve that idea. This is our Liberty in Practice dialogue series. There's going to be 8 dialogues. These are limited seating events. Those with VIP tickets to Liberty Forum get priority access to register for those. So that's one of the great unique things about Liberty Forum that we added last year, was very popular. We are bringing back again. But of course, we're going to have a ton of main stage content as well. Those are much more open seating, a lot more opportunity to get into main stage content. A lot of great speakers that we are announcing. We've announced a couple. If you are getting our Free State Project newsletter, you will have seen those announcements. But I'm happy to announce this week that we're announcing our first keynote speaker for the New Hampshire Liberty Forum. And he's going to be our Friday afternoon, early evening keynote speaker on the main stage. And that is my good friend and a real champion of liberty when it comes to understanding the empire and how to fight back to restore the principles of the republic rather than all this forever war making. And that is the one and only, the great Scott Horton. Scott Horton will be joining us at the New Hampshire Liberty Forum as our Friday keynote speaker, and we very much look forward to having him. So Scott will be speaking about how do we build freedom from the war machine, with a particular focus on something we're going to be talking about on this program today, Defend the Guard, calling home our troops from wars, our National Guard troops from wars that have not been declared by Congress, which is all of them, really, when you think about it. Congress doesn't do its job anymore. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. So we're really glad to have Scott Horton joining us, and I hope that you come out and join us. So, and also, just a reminder, you get your tickets for Liberty Forum. Please use the discount code PORKREPORT, and that will give you 5% off the ticket price as a gift from me to you for watching and being a part of our audience. And I will note, too, our Porcupine patrons, if you are a gold level patron or higher, you are potentially entitled to some complimentary tickets to Liberty Forum. So if you're gold level patron or higher, reach out to us and we will get you set up with your complimentary tickets for Liberty Forum. Gold level, you can get complimentary general admission tickets. And at higher levels, you can get complimentary VIP tickets. Anyway, reach out and we'll get you set up. And everyone's always asking about Pork Fest. I literally any day now. I don't know when the contract is going to arrive. We're waiting on a contract from a venue. We are in talks with a venue. I'm very excited about it. I'm so excited to tell you about it, but I can't tell you about it until the ink is dry because it's never final until it's final. So we do have a venue we are in talks with. We're working out the final details. Please mark your calendar for June 30th through July 5th. We are planning to do this over the week that ends on the 4th of July, the 250th Independence Day. So this will literally be, if we execute this, the freest place on earth to celebrate the 250th. Where else would you want to be but in New Hampshire with all these freedom lovers at the Porcupine Freedom Festival? So mark your calendar and I will get you details as soon as I possibly can. We've been through a bit of an ordeal this year with not being able to go back to our historic venue at Rogers Campground. And it's a whole story, but I will spare you the details. Anyway, we're grateful to the folks at Rogers Campground for hosting us for so many years. And we're looking forward to writing the next chapter for the Porcupine Freedom Festival. And I hope that you are marking your calendar for June 30th through July 5th so that you are ensuring you will be able to join us for that. Just general notes. I've been promoting our patron program. Again, you've been hearing about the benefits you get for being a patron, all these events coming up. You get complimentary tickets for things. Well, if you become a Porcupine patron at fsp.org/give, not only is your donation tax deductible, you will get in the mail a Porcupine patron lapel pin with a personalized thank you card from me. This entitles you to special benefits and perks at Free State Project events. Plus, it just makes you look cool. It's very fashionable, and it tells everyone that you put your money where your mouth is when it comes to supporting the most effective strategy for achieving liberty in our lifetime that's currently in place, perhaps that has ever been tried. And you'll want that. You'll get access to our Porcupine Patron Signal group. We're building a patron exclusive sections in the Free State Forum. We are currently in the process of restoring and bringing back on the website. We do regular video conference calls quarterly this year. We're going to be doing that quarterly. We do a quarterly print patron newsletter, which everyone loves to receive because it's like so retro. No one does that anymore, the print newsletter. So you definitely want to become a patron. Please do that, fsp.org/give. We would love to have you in our patron program. That's how we fund the year-round operations of the Free State Project. We rely on our patrons. So thank you to the hundreds and hundreds of patrons. Last I count, we had just hit 280 by the end of the year. We've had a few more sign up since then. I've got like 4 thank you cards I need to send out with patron pins. So anyway, thank you to our patrons. And of course, sign up for the Free State Project newsletter on the website every week. In fact, after we record this, I got to go to my local coffee shop and sit down for a couple hours and write that newsletter. So you want to get the newsletter. It's great stuff. Everyone loves it, just like they love this podcast. And if you're missing out, and you don't know what you're missing out on. So sign up for the FSP newsletter, fsp.org/post for the Porcupine Post. I think that's what we're calling it. Porcupine Report, Porcupine Post, Porcupine Coffee, Pork Fest, Pork Day. Everything is porcupine. We love the porcupines. Someone asked me once, why the porcupines? I went to a local GOP meeting. I've been doing outreach to some of these local GOP meetings, and someone asked, why the porcupines? Why is the porcupine the symbol? Well, it's because a porcupine is a peaceful creature, but it open carries. You don't want to mess with it. Don't mess with it. It won't mess with you, but you mess with it. Porcupine knows how to fight back, just like we do. All right, let's get into the show. I've been doing intro stuff for long enough. We have a great guest today, returning guest to the program, someone who's become a great friend the longer I've been here in New Hampshire. And he is a state legislator. He made the move to New Hampshire from Massachusetts. He is a retired U.S. Marine. And he is the champion, the bill champion in the state legislature for Defend the Guard legislation, working to bring our National Guard troops home from wars that Congress has not declared. And there was some big news this past week. Was it this past week? Maybe it's been 2 weeks now. For the second time, the New Hampshire House of Representatives has passed Defend the Guard legislation. New Hampshire was just a few short years ago the very first state to have a lower chamber pass Defend the Guard legislation. This is a bold move to counter the war machine. And there are some great prospects ahead for what things look like as this goes to the New Hampshire Senate. So we're going to be talking about that today with Representative Tom Mannion. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me, man. I'm always glad to be here.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure. I know to our audience, if anything is out of date on this episode, it's legislative schedules. Usually we record these episodes a day ahead of time, like the Tuesday before. We're doing this over the weekend because it's hard to get legislators on in the middle of the week during legislative season for some reason. So go figure. Anyway, we appreciate the work that you're doing in the State House, Tom.
Well, thank you.
Happy to record an episode a little early so we can have you on.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for working around my schedule. I was 2 different committee hearings this week. It just sometimes doesn't line up.
Well, before we talk about Defend the Guard, I guess just tell us generally, what is this you just started, the New Hampshire legislature just started a new legislative session for this year. What's the general feel? What's the general vibe? I mean, I see it not just Defend the Guard passing. There was this amazing food sovereignty law.
Yeah, pickleball.
Campus carry just got a favorable vote in committee. So it feels like there's a lot of liberty happening in the New Hampshire House this year. What's the general feel?
So it's it's really good. We got a lot of we don't have the budget to put things into like we did last time, where we got rid of vaccine recommendations from DHHS, the car inspection repeal, taking money away from the universities that's being blown on projects they shouldn't be spent. But so now each bill has to stand on its own merits. But yeah, I was in the committee hearing this week when they passed a campus carry, or recommended ought to pass. So that's a fantastic win. And we also have, as you described, we passed at the same day that we did Defend the Guard was a out of environmental and agriculture it's basically like if you remember, Thomas Massey's been prime sponsoring this federal level Prime Act to allow the states to slaughter their own cows and sheep. Yeah. We're basically saying we're not going to wait for the feds to give us permission. We're just going to do it ourselves and allow butchers and people who own these animals to butcher their own cows and sell internally in the state. You can't go outside the state. That's where the Commerce Clause kicks in. And we're trying to, because right now, what they described in the floor speech is there are lines at these 3 choke points, these 3 USDA approved slaughterhouses, where you have to have an animal ready to be slaughtered before it's even born. You have to put its name on the list. It's insane, like the backlog they have at these places. And the weakness of this became very apparent during COVID, when they were shutting down these slaughterhouses and people were just sitting on their livestock and they weren't able to slaughter them. So this is, we're 5 years, 6 years now after COVID, and we're still feeling the ramifications of that.
I when I was in the Maine Senate, there were some big moves on food sovereignty in Maine, and some great I want to say great leaps forward, but that has a bad connotation.
No, right.
Anyway, there was some great progress towards freedom and liberty in Maine on food sovereignty, but this was the one thing that they were afraid to touch. Mm-hmm. There were compromises made. All right, fine, we got to pull meat processing out of these food sovereignty bills, because that's the one thing everyone is afraid of the federal government on.
Yeah.
And of course, you wonder, and this has been such a big problem for these small farms. It's impossible. It seems impossible to function under this federal system with the lack of supply of meat processing that's available. And you wonder, I wonder at times if is it by accident or is it by design, because it certainly does seem to benefit the very large meat processing, the very large, factory farms, which are the ones I'm actually worried about tainted meat, from not like the little local, the local farm where I can go and I can meet the animals and I can see how they're being raised, and I'm not as worried about them, and yet those are the ones who are being choked off by this federal system.
Yep. That was actually in the hearing and on the floor speech as well. I was just talking about all the cases of like recalled meat and bad meat that came out of these big factories. So it's like, they're like, oh, well, we need the USDA to tell us what is good meat. And it's like, well, you just sent out thousands and thousands of pounds of bad meat. So what good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The illusion of safety.
Yeah.
That is what the federal government is so great at providing.
Exactly.
We got a little stamp here that says it's safe. Is it actually safe? Well, we said it is.
Yeah.
Shouldn't that be enough for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I love. Who was the prime sponsor on that? I kind of want to see if I can reach out to them to get them to talk at the New Hampshire Liberty Forum.
That's a good question. I'd have to look it up, but I know it went through environmental and agriculture. I'm not sure. I don't know. We'd have to look it up, but they'd be a fantastic get because we've had like year over year, there's more and more food freedoms that come down. Like because was it the year before was like reindeer, and then let's like every year they were adding more and more things that allow people to sell stuff at just like farmers markets or directly to their neighbor, or whatever it is. This is the first time that we're I think actively trying to fight the USDA, whereas the other stuff is just kind of like opening game, like stuff that we were always able to just like hunt and sell here.
Yeah. Well, we also mentioned, so Campus Carry passed out a committee, which is a very good sign considering Defend the Guard just passed the House and Defend the Guard got a negative vote in committee. So
yes,
you guys overturned a negative committee report to actually pass it, which I was a little concerned when I saw the negative committee vote. Anyway, we'll come back to that. But what's going on with Campus Carry?
I mean, the super sympathetic coming out of the Criminal Justice Committee. They're really good on guns. That committee, they're not so good on cannabis, our side at least, and we have a majority, but they're really good on guns. And what's even better is there's actually a small little enclave of Democrats that vote with gun issues as well. So like we already have a majority in the House, but
these like Democrats in rural areas.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. This one might not be the same as like other gun laws where it has to do with like hunting or something. And they're always on board with the hunting stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of Democrats out in like we don't have any up in Coos anymore, but definitely out in those rural areas towards Vermont and stuff. There will be Democrats who will vote with us on gun issues. And like Campus Carry is, it's always coming up, and we always have like young folks, including like this time we had like young females talking about being scared on campus and stuff like that, and they feel that this kind of thing would alleviate a lot of their fears just walking home at night from class and things like that. This whole as we've always said, as gun advocates have always said, gun-free zones are crime zones, right? Because you can't defend yourself.
Unarmed victim zones.
Exactly. Yep. It's just a target-rich environment for bad people.
Which is why that's where the shootings happen.
Precisely.
I mean, it's pretty obvious when you kind of like put two and two together.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Democrats aren't. Well, I shouldn't be partisan. Okay, big government folks aren't always good at math.
Right.
So you're asking them to put two and two together is it can be a challenge. But it is. I mean, it's very encouraging. I know that when you kind of put kind of the idea of schools and guns together, people can get kind of anxious. We're talking about college campuses, and we're talking about adults. And of course, someone who has intent to harm people, is that person going to check to make sure that it's allowed for them to carry a gun? But, before it's not allowed to, you're not allowed to murder people.
Yeah. Right? They don't care. And like the absurd arguments about it's like, oh, well, they're still developing minds. A lot of these kids are drinking and stuff like that. I was like, I come from the Marine Corps where the first time I ever handled a weapon was on Parris Island, and I was 18 years old. And I think 6 months later, I was firing belt-fed machine guns. So the idea that an 18-year-old can't handle firearms properly is insane to me.
Yeah. Well, and I've always figured, this might be a controversial thing to say. I am not totally opposed, to gun-free zones. I think it makes sense maybe at times to have a gun-free zone at a courthouse or something. Sure. But that's a secured zone, and you are actually taking responsibility for people's safety. You're actually screening people. You actually have armed kind of guard, people who are actively taking responsibility for people's safety, or you should be. But to just put up a sign and say this is a gun-free zone, it's like, all right, well now you are prohibiting people from defending themselves, but you are doing nothing to provide for their safety and to defend them in the event of an emergency. And so it's kind of it's the worst possible thing. So unless they, and I certainly don't think it would be a good idea to turn an entire campus into a police state. So maybe though some days it seems like they turn that way more and more. So anyway, this seems like a very good way to go. Let people if they want to take responsibility for their own defense, let them do it.
Mm-hmm. I do want to say that prime sponsor is Sam Farrington. He's a first-time rep. He's a young guy, a college kid, I think like early 20s, and that he would be a fantastic guest if you can reach out to him. But like he's really good. He's extremely active. He's going viral for all kinds of things to do with like campus. Like he worked with he helped organize that Charlie Kirk memorial that they had over at UNH. He's very plugged in, and the young folks are looking up to him in this state.
Great. I've met him on several occasions. I think he's involved with his like Young Americans for Liberty chapter too at UNH. And we should get him on the show sometime, and maybe we should get him at Liberty Forum to talk about this. So I'm making a note here. So this is not just like a podcast for broadcasting. I'm actually taking ideas from Tom and writing them down. So all right, well, let's talk about Defend the Guard. So I can't get over this because, and I don't know if the audience, everyone in the audience will appreciate like what a victory this is. I remember the first time Defend the Guard was ever sponsored in the state legislature ever. It was 2011. One of my old mentors' friends in Maine. He was State Representative Aaron Libby, an apple farmer from Southern Maine, and was kind of our very involved in the Ron Paul 2012 effort. He sponsored Defend the Guard, and he pushed it through to get a floor vote in the Maine House of Representatives. If I remember right, it got 7 votes out of 151. Right? It's like people are like, "What are you talking?" The idea that a state can tell the federal government that they can't use our state and National Guard troops, and we're going to call them home from wars. Now, of course, back then there was a little bit more of a sense of, well, our troops are over there, fighting the people who attacked us on 9/11 and making the world safe for democracy and spreading freedom and all these things that turned out not to be true at all. Yeah. But people still marginally believed those things back then, even a decade into the war on terror. These days, the proponents of these wars don't even bother making those arguments because nobody believes them anymore. And yet there has still been this resistance to this idea that like, well, who are we as a state legislature to tell the federal government that they can't have our state National Guard troops? And of course, you and I know the constitutional arguments around why the states can. But New Hampshire, just a few short years ago, I can't remember if it was 2 years or 3 years. I don't know at all. 2 years ago, became the first lower chamber in the country to pass Defend the Guard. When I was championing this legislation in Maine, we were grateful we got a third of the House of Representatives and 1 state senator. So the fact that this is passed in New Hampshire now for a second time is great. And what I love now was I was concerned because when it passed 2 years ago, it went over to the Senate, and the Senate just shelved it. They wouldn't even do a roll call vote on it. It died without a roll call vote. They were too scared. They were too cowardly to go on the record on this, and there weren't enough Liberty senators over there to force a roll call vote. Well, we went from 1 Liberty senator to 5 Liberty senators in this last election cycle, so I'm a little more optimistic. Yep. I don't know that it'll pass the Senate. I certainly hope that it will, but that we will get all of these folks on record and be in a stronger place to the next step, whatever comes next. Yeah. Anyway, you're the bill champion on this, and here I am kind of going on.
No, hey, that's a good intro.
Tell us about what happened in the House of Representatives and what you see as the significance of the passage of this legislation in the House.
So I was so last fall so last year I filed it, and the committee chair and stuff like that, we decided we were just gonna for the time being put it into what we call retained for the summer. So we like retained the bill. We would come back to it in the fall. Everything in the first year is always budget focused. So if your bill doesn't really have anything to do with the budget, or it's something that you think we should shoehorn in the budget, that's usually what's taken up first, and anything else should probably be retained for the following year. So we retained it. I didn't really want to retain it. An ally on my committee actually voted against the retain motion because he wanted to vote on it and pass it that day, and I appreciate that guy. But we did retain. We came back, and it was in what was it, October, November, somewhere. It was in the fall, right? So we meet again in the exec session, and come to find out, my chair, who had supported it before the previous term, had been flipped, and he gave this long speech. He wrote it out, and he explains that he met with some general in Boston from somewhere, probably the Pentagon, and he said, if this passes any state, it's going to destroy the National Guard as we know it. Like, this sky is falling, who the hell knows? And that, for whatever reason, flipped his vote.
You know, I have to say, I don't know the individual. I don't know exactly what motivated him. But if I were to guess, one of the factors was, well, last time there was a Democrat president, and this time there's a Republican president.
Right.
Anyway, I just my suspicion.
I will. So when it comes to the final vote, I'm going to give my theories on that as well. So like that comes out. So now that he flips, which flips another member of my committee, there was two that I knew on my side, the Republican side, that are never going to vote for it, and they're still on my committee. There was no way I was ever going to flip them, but I thought I had an ace in the hole with these two Democrats that told me they were going to vote for it. However, come the day of the vote, they were both no-shows. And so their leadership just handpicked two people that were going to follow orders. So it ended up coming out of committee with a ITL, which is to kill, like inexpedient to legislate recommendation, because I had no Democrats this time around and only 6 of the 10 Republicans. So that sucked. In my head, in my own whipping in my head, I thought, like, I knew my chair was on the fence, but even with or without him, I thought it was going to come out a tie vote, and things just didn't work out that way. Yeah. So I was super pessimistic coming out of that. And then not only that, yep.
I will say, I did enjoy, last year, this was the only public hearing I came out and testified in.
Appreciate it.
This is such an important issue, at least to me personally. Anyway, it was, it was disappointing to see that vote, but at the end of the day, it's just a recommendation, and the folks on the floor can do what they want.
We can do what we want. During that hearing, actually, it's interesting because we passed it 2 years ago when we had done the very first hearing that I had been a part of. It was very heavily in support with the testimony. We had like SVAC, which is the Veterans Advisory Committee. They came out in opposition. I'm a member of that. Like, I'm a non-voting member of the State Veterans Advisory Committee. It's basically the heads of the VFW, American Legion, Marine Corps League. They come and they meet, and it's meant to more or less interface with state government and give their bill recommendations. And it's made up of a lot of like Vietnam era guys that I don't know if they're like bought in on the propaganda, but like their whole thing is like, oh, well, we shouldn't do anything to harm the military or stop what we're doing because we're the good guys, right? Like, and I think their brains are stuck in that capsule from like Cold War era, right? And I think they just like live in a Tom Clancy novel in their head.
It's so weird. It just reminds me, I was at a GOP meeting talking about the Free State Project the other week, and I'm always taking questions and answering them. And someone asked me, like, Free Staters, do you guys support the police? And I was like, because it's like, I guess pro cop person. Sure. And I just thought, well, what does that even mean? Like, it's like I support the police when they're protecting life, liberty, and property, yeah. Right? But it's like, if you're sending the police door to door to take people's guns, then I don't support the police. It's like the same with the military.
Or dragging kids out of restaurants for not wearing a mask.
Yeah. It's like, it depends on, is this being used in service of liberty and following constitutional standards or not? And so it's the same with the military, right? It's like,
yes.
Are we using the military for liberty, for protecting liberty and in a constitutional fashion or not. Like I can support the military. In fact, I think supporting the military means supporting the constitutional framework. Anyway, off my soapbox. Back to
you. That's fine. And like that's what I always say. It's like if you support the guys going down range, make sure that these guys, nobody's questioning their service, like that they want to go fight, right? Like a lot of these guys are enlisting because they want to go fight. But we as the legislature should, for even federal, state, should make sure that motivation, that patriotism, that sacrifice is for a worthy cause, right? And we should be at bare minimum going through the process, which Congress has not done since 1942. So it's like, so anyway, so we get those recommendations. And so the first time that we had that hearing, there was very few in opposition. The second time, the one time you showed up to testify, there's like other people coming out of the woodwork, and they were quoting things like Dick Cheney as if it was a good thing. Like there was one guy literally quoted Dick Cheney, and then this other guy's talking about like Gulf of Tonkin and like all these like crazy things. It's like, so what your justification is that the Vietnam War was worth it in the end? Is that what you're saying? Like we should always just knee-jerk react to everything and deploy everything we have and not think it through? In my floor speech, I actually quoted one of the individuals that came up there and testified against the bill. He said, following the Constitution is nice in theory, but it's not necessary anymore. And I put that in my floor speech, and I heard gasps from my side when I said that on the floor. But that's the opposition we're up against, right? Like these guys that want expediency, they don't really care about following processes. And
I mean, you got to respect the honesty to some degree, right? You know, it's like at least they know that they're not following the Constitution. Yeah. It's like, we're not. You know, we're in a post-constitutional society now. Anything goes. Government can do anything it wants. Yep. You know.
So so you came there, and like despite all that great testimony, we did come out of the committee with an ITL motion, and then I even had the misfortune of I'm on the whip team, so we put the questions to the entire caucus. Unlike the Democrats, we do ask from the ground up, like grassroots, ask our members, hey, do you guys support all these things? If enough of you, 80-something% of you support something, we will say that leadership and the Republican caucus this is a priority and we're voting for it. The problem with Defend the Guard is it didn't quite cross that 80% threshold. I'm sitting there on the whip team looking at this spreadsheet, seeing 30 of our members opposed and 50 unsure. And I'm like, that is not a comfortable margin. And like, while I could have went rogue and like whipped those people in the background, we had like this Property Tax Relief Act and all these other things that I was actually supposed to be prioritizing. So in the back of my head, I'm like, well, Defend the Guard's not going to have the success it had before, because like last time we only lost 20 Republicans when it came to it was a tied house then. And now we have a bigger margin, but this is 30 plus 50 undecided. I'm like, I mean, even if like all the undecideds vote with me, we still lose, because there's no way I'm getting more than like 10 Democrats this time around.
I wouldn't know how to do that balancing act that you're doing, Tom. Like I never ran for leadership because I just thought, I mean, I guess it's different. You have a much more liberty caucus. Like
it's a different animal, and like we have a lot of good people on the whip team and stuff like that. Yeah. There's people who work a lot harder at it than I do. Like I look at that thing and I get super pessimistic, where I see stuff like Defend the Guard, and I'm like, it's like, why am I in this party? Things like that, right? But it's like, it's a vehicle though. We stay with the party because it's the vehicle.
It is the vehicle, and a lot of these people you bring many of them along over time, and some of them will be swapped out over time. That's
exactly.
There's a new generation coming up, and a lot of them are free staters. So
amen. Yes. But so it's like going into the vote day, I pretty much told everybody, I was like, get ready for this thing to lose. I'm going to write this floor speech. Jonah Wheeler, who's a progressive out of Peterborough, he's been an ally on like small issues like health freedom, things.
Yeah,
like
we
that.
shared his in the newsletter this last week. We shared your floor speech and his floor speech. So there's some bipartisanship on this issue.
And he's been a co-sponsor. Like this year, last year when we had it was only veterans were on the bill. That was just something that Derek Prue had organized. He wanted only vets on the bill, and that makes sense because like we wanted to come from a veteran perspective. This time I've just flooded the zone. I got the full 10 sponsors plus one senator. And I made sure it was bipartisan just as before. And I don't know how much whipping the progressives did on their end. I'll have to interface with them later to see if they actually did, or if it was just Jonah or my floor speech that moved the needle. But it did end up, we got 43 Democrats
Awesome.
And it counterbalanced the 45 Republicans we lost.
I bet you got more Democrats because now there's a Republican president.
Exactly. And that is something. So like Ellen Reed, she did the PI for me in the first term. She came down and she does this like friendly question with me, but like she's like pissing off the speaker because when you come down and you ask a question, you're supposed to pretty much ask one question and leave. And it's been a long 2 days. So like she's asking like this 3-part question and like the speaker's like getting pissed. You could just see it on his face. And I'm like, oh, Ellen, come on, just get to the point. And she does exactly like you said, where she's like, hey, my side, remember when you guys voted against this last term because our guy was in the White House and I warned how we wouldn't always be in the White House? Well, what do you think about that now was basically her question.
Yeah. If you don't want the Republican president taking, National Guard troops and putting them in Palestine or Syria. Or Syria. I mean, they're already there, right? Yeah. But we can bring them home from that. I know. So, it is, on the one hand, it is a shame that people's principles like go out the window for these partisan loyalties, right?
Yeah.
You would hope that folks wouldn't care whether there's a Republican Democrat or a Democrat president for whether or not we should follow the Constitution. But understanding that that's just the nature of politics, you take advantage of it when you can to try to get us towards a more constitutional outcome. Yep.
Yeah. So the vote this time was actually a bigger gap than the year before. So before we won by 5 votes, this time we won by 23. So it's a much bigger gap. It's sad to see the amount of Republicans that dropped off, but as you said, it's probably because Trump's in the White House and they wouldn't want to do anything to run afoul of Trump. And
even though his Secretary of War was on the record supporting Defend the Guard before he went into the administration, and we haven't really heard from him on that since.
Like to that point, like I said in my floor speech, like we have sent 3 letters to his office, 1 from the speaker's office, 1 from my committee directly, and then 1 I back channeled through like the Concerned Veterans for America, which was an organization he used to chair, back channeling through those people. And like he never replied, but I would assume that guy, Pete Hegseth, who's not afraid to like tell a room full of generals they're all fat and going to get fired, that if he did not like Defend the Guard, he would have said something. He would have been like, no, don't pass this. I'm in charge now. Don't pass it. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think it's the last thing he publicly said on the issue. Yes. And it's when these adjutant generals are coming out and lobbying against it. I don't know, was it Scott Horton or someone said you might want to check with your boss and make sure that this is in fact the position you're supposed to be taking.
Yeah, exactly. There is coordination across these adjutant generals. Like they started there's the new catchphrases, defund the guard as the counter thing. And when one state started doing it, they all did it like simultaneously. So it's like, oh, there's definitely some like top down thing coming from the National Guard Bureau or something, like some propagandist wrote that line.
Well, it's clever on the one hand, but on the other hand, I think it really reveals, and this is, I remember last year testifying on the bill, like this is the disgusting thing about their position, which is right. They don't have any arguments for how this is constitutional, right? The current situation. They don't have any arguments anymore for how this is beneficial to the American people, how this is actually promoting democracy or freedom or whatever they tell us, week to week we're promoting in these forever wars that have not been declared by Congress. They just come back to money. They just say, oh, well, if we can't send off your sons and daughters to die in wars that Congress doesn't care enough about to formally declare, then we might not get some extra Humvees. It's like, well, I'm sorry, like that's not acceptable. Like there is a this is a moral and ethical question. This is not a question of money. I always want to share the story of my late friend Sergeant Aaron Rollins from Maine, who was my good ally on working this issue in Maine, who sadly is not with us anymore. But I remember the last time I sponsored this legislation, and it was before the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. We were dealing with these same arguments from the Adjutant General and from all these folks about like, well, what if the federal government threatens to take away our money, which is, actually you look at the laws and it's a lot harder for them to take away the money than a lot of protections in there. It's a lot harder for them to take away the money than they suggest. But I just remember Aaron, who was in the Maine Army National Guard and who lost a very good buddy in a roadside bomb that went off, as they were driving along, and his buddy was, I think his buddy was in the seat that Aaron said he was normally in, and it just happened to be different that day, and I just remember him. We walked out of that public hearing. I just will always remember him turning to me and just saying, it's just how disgusted he was by the Adjutant General and these folks talking about money. He says, I wish that they would look my buddy's mom in the face and tell her that it was okay that her son died in a war that nobody can justify because the state got some like extra military equipment out of the deal. Like that's not a good argument.
No. And it's still happening to this day. Like December, we lost 2 more Iowa National Guardsmen were dead in Syria again, like more. And it's just never ending. And like the counter arguments is the exact same crap for us. Like, and it's like fine tuned to the different states. Cause like each state is proud of whatever the hell their National Guard fought to get. Right. So ours is this refueling tanker that's sitting on a runway in Pease Airport. And they're like that we fought for decades for that, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I wish you fought as hard for the men, that the lives of the men that you're supposed to be in charge of as you did for that refueling tanker. And we're more proud of the men, the lives and the families that they are not going to come home to for that than you are with that refueling tanker. And it's like, what you're talking about is hypothetically, we might lose the refueling tanker. What I'm talking about are those 2 guys that are never going to come home again, that served in Iowa, that they're never going to see their families again. And it's for what, right? Like these counter arguments are, oh, well, it's keeping us safe from ISIS. It's like, no, they died to ISIS defending Al-Qaeda from ISIS is what we're doing in Syria.
ISIS is now running Syria. Like, it's like we put an Al-Qaeda leader in charge of Syria. We took out the secular dictator there and put Al-Qaeda in place. And now we invite him over to the White House and like act like everything is like, it's like, what the, it's like, I don't know. I get worked up about it.
Me too, man. Like
what the hell are we doing over there?
That's the most frustrating part of it all is just like they talk about like the equipment, but then they're not even talking about the big picture, right? Like so Defend the Guard isn't just around because it's like, oh, well, if we should follow the Constitution. It's like, no, there's men's lives on the line. And what we're doing is not making the United States safer. Everything that we're doing here is just it's going to create an entire new generation of ISIS 2 or whatever the hell is going to come out of Syria in the next like 20 years. Like God knows what's going to happen, right? Like it's like everything that we done it's all blowback. Like we do one thing and it screws up, it blows up in our face, and we just do this time and time again, like since the end of World War II, potentially before World War II. And this is just Defend the Guard is trying to, put a tourniquet on this to kind of stop it a little bit, and then get all these states to kind of recognize the militia do belong to the states, and they have been historically since the foundation of this country. And we should probably be reasserting our 10th Amendment and taking these individuals back. Like we should be like, okay, Congress, you really want to nationalize these and send these boys downrange. Congress, please do your job first, and then you can use them to your heart's content.
Yeah. It's almost like war is a racket and the outcome of the war doesn't actually matter, that people don't care if the wars are won or lost. They care that the wars take place because there is a lot of money to be made in the manufacturing of all the military equipment, which is oftentimes it comes in subpar and over budget. And, that's the point is, and lives that are lost, the taxpayers who are bilked, that's just collateral damage.
That catchphrase comes from Smedley Butler, that he wrote that packet, and he was a 2-time Medal of Honor winner with the United States Marine Corps, Smedley Butler, and I will respect that man to the end of my days. And I wish more like combat vets and like would do that. Like one thing I do want to mention is like my squad leader for my first deployment, who I haven't spoken to since I left the Marine Corps, saw my floor speech, and he lives over in Idaho. And he reached out to me after my floor speech went a little bit viral in my own social circle on Facebook. And he was like, he's like full on like, I support what you're doing right now. I'm going to try getting engaged. And that's what we need. We need more individuals, especially guys that went through the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, guys who've been to Syria. We need them engaged, and we need them supporting things like this in their states.
Yeah, I think I'm going to ask our producer, Renita, in post-production at the tail end of this episode. Let's add in your floor speech at the end for those who'd like to hear it. And we'll also throw in after that, for those who stick around beyond that, I will throw in my committee testimony too. Sweet. That was a lot of fun, and important to, I never with committee testimony, I never imagine we're going to ever change anyone's mind on the issue on the committee. Maybe I'm just a pessimist. I figure the committee testimony is more to be recorded and shared to kind of educate the public, because I find that, politicians for the most part are persuaded by how many angry voters they get calling them from their district, and not anything anyone said in a committee hearing.
That helps. I felt the same way about floor speeches, but I think between me and Jonah, I think we actually moved the needle on the floor, whereas most people tune out. Like we spent 2 days doing, I think like 60 bills, and no one's paying attention to most of them. But I think on that bill in particular, the needle was moved by floor speeches. So you never don't ever discredit showing up and testifying. It could move the needle. Yeah. I guess I certainly want to encourage people to show up and testify for things. Sorry, I shouldn't downplay that too much. No, I understand the pessimism. I get it. But just also, if you want to make sure that there's actual value being gotten out of it, make sure to grab the recording and put it on social media. Yes. So anyway, so if you don't manage to persuade a politician, then at least you can help raise awareness and educate someone to maybe call their politician and. Or primary their politician. Or do that. Of course, as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, the Free State Project does not encourage people to primary politicians or even do legislative advocacy. That's for our friends and other groups like the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance and all that. So, but we can cover after the fact the great news of Defend the Guard passing the New Hampshire House of Representatives for a second time. Yep. And what do you think as we look forward to the state Senate and this crossing over? Their leadership doesn't like it. I'm working my own personal senator. I encourage everybody to reach out to their senators. We do have sympathetic people. I do have one co-sponsor that's from the Senate, which is different than the previous year. I hope that we should get a roll call. I don't know. It could be the evil alliance between the Democrats and Republicans in the other direction that kills it this time. So, well, I do want to emphasize to people if it fails in the state Senate, which, I think, who knows? We've never had a roll call vote over there before. We've never seen the chips fall where they may. But to get a roll call vote in the Senate, to get all of these senators on record, that itself would be a tremendous victory, because that means now in election season, folks who care about this issue can educate their voters in their districts and make it so that people can let their senators know that they're either happy or disappointed in them based on their vote on this. And that is what ultimately, in the long run, changes behavior, is when the people who have the actual power to fire them from their positions can be informed about how they're voting, and and create that feedback loop. So, but you can't do that without a roll call vote, which is why it was so disappointing 2 years ago that they shelved it. So that failure to get a roll call ended up sparking what I think ended up being a $500,000 Senate primary between the two sides spending money. It cost a good chunk of change. And it actually was like a lightning rod between a bunch of different liberty organizations, even ones that don't even care. They're not they're either health freedom or education freedom groups. They all coalesced around this is unacceptable. We couldn't even get a roll call vote. We're not even like, we're not bill champions for Defend the Guard. We don't even necessarily know what it is, but we know how important this is to so many people that we couldn't even get a roll call vote on the record, that they all rallied behind a Senate primary. And cost a fortune.
that primary where Senator Ganondorf was challenged.
By Emily Phillips. Yeah,
by Emily Phillips. Yep. I call him Senator Ganondorf, like from Zelda, because he seems to be as a villain like that. At least on this issue, I don't personally know the guy. Maybe he's a very pleasant guy. I don't know.
Yeah, for all we know, he may vote for this bill. I don't know. We didn't get a roll call, so we don't know. We don't know how he voted.
You hate Senator Ganondorf. If you vote for it, I'll take it all back.
Yeah.
But you know what? I mean, the fact that they had to spend all that money defending that seat, even if they ultimately won the primary, that still inflicts some pain on the politicians and sends a shot across the bow that they need to take this issue seriously. So that even sometimes when you lose, you win.
Yes.
So
I liked seeing, I was out there door knocking with guys who had never door knocked before because they were motivated by this issue. So things like that are that warms my heart. Just like seeing the alliance across all the different liberty organizations, guys I've never met before. They're like, yeah, I saw that this didn't get a roll call and it made me angry. I don't know what I'm doing with this door knocking, but I'll come with you. You could teach me how. And I was door knocking with first timers. It was great.
What is the what's the time frame that people might expect to see something in the Senate? What's the earliest something could happen?
It could happen immediately, right? The Senate's sometimes sneaky that way, but there is a crossover period that comes, I think I want to say it's in March, where all of our bills that we're holding on to and have recommendations get kicked over to the Senate.
Does it have to go through a Senate committee process?
Yes. There will be another Senate. So I would love if everybody would come out and testify. Just watch my Twitter, watch everywhere. I hope it'll get retweeted like crazy once it gets a committee hearing scheduled.
Yeah. Let us know, and we can share that information too. I don't for our 501c3 status, I'm not going to tell people go and testify, but I can inform people. Here's when the public hearing is happening.
Yeah.
For your information.
Sweet. Thank you.
So, cool. All right. Well, Tom, we're coming to the end of the hour. I want to give you the final word. Share anything you want to share. Plug anything you want to plug.
Yeah. So my Twitter's Mannion, MANNION, the number 4 NH. It's very generic and lots of people have them. I use that more than anything else. I have a website that I try to keep up to date, but just follow me on Twitter. I will definitely be blasting out the news when this thing finally gets a scheduled hearing, and definitely harp on your senator, whoever it is. It doesn't matter left, right. Please just call them and just say, I support Defend the Guard when it finally hits the Senate floor, please.
Maybe I'll have to call my senator for the first time. I've never interacted with him. He's a Democrat.
Who knows? There may be a coalition.
Who knows? I'll call him and tell him, I'm so concerned what Republican President Donald Trump might do if he's not going to follow the Constitution on this. I really hope that you will take a stand against him by voting for. Like Scott Horton says, you got to come at the right from the right and the left from the left. So,
yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Tom. Thanks for all the work that you're doing, and thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I love it.
All right, everyone. That's the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And a few reminders. Porcupine Day. Get your tickets February 3rd, fsp.org/pork day. New Hampshire Liberty Forum, March 5th through the 8th, nhlibertyforum.com. Use our discount code PorkReport for 5% off your Liberty Forum tickets. Again, announcing today, Scott Horton will be one of our keynote speakers. He'll be our Friday keynote speaker, and he'll be talking about these very issues around Defend the Guard and how practical things we can do to build freedom against the war machine. So you're not going to want to miss that. Get your tickets, nhlibertyforum.com. Become a patron, fsp.org/give. And if you're already a patron and you're at a patron level where you're entitled to complimentary tickets for our events, and I will say all patrons get access to a higher discount code, even if you don't not qualified for complimentary tickets, you get a steeper discount than just the general 5% discount that that we're giving out generally to folks. So become a patron. And if you are qualified for those complimentary tickets, reach out to us and we'll set you up. We'd love to have you at Porcupine Day. Love to have you at the New Hampshire Liberty Forum. Love to have you at Pork Fest when I finally got some news to announce. Cross our fingers. It could be any day now. I hope. All right. That's it, everyone. Furthermore, my opinion is the Federal Reserve should be destroyed.
Representative Tom Mannion for the minority of the committee. Representative Mannion is recognized to speak against the committee report. Representative Tom Mannion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition of the committee recommendation of ITL on HB 104, the Defend the Guard Act. This bill requires Congress to formally declare war pursuant to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 of the United States Constitution before we will release our National Guard to Title 10 service in a foreign combat zone. It does not prevent activation for any other purpose, including the constitutionally prescribed functions in Clause 15 to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrection, and repel invasions. It does not stop emergency response, nor oversees training in accordance with Per-Pitch versus DOD. It is narrowly focused to force the constitutional action from Congress, who have exclusive power to declare war as intended by the founders, a function they have abandoned since 1942. War declarations have been supplanted by authorizations for use of military force as a separate component of the War Powers Resolution of 1973. Functionally, they've allowed presidents of the last 10 administrations to act unilaterally overseas, and once forces are committed, to send the tab over to Congress to be paid. This is an inversion of the founders' intent. As James Madison said, quote, "In no part of the Constitution is more wisdom to be found than in the clause which confides the question of war or peace to the legislature and not the executive department." And yet Congress has abdicated its responsibility for decades. Now, I've explained the constitutional justification for the bill, but the reason the act continues to be filed over 30 states is because of the lives lost, not just in combat. When Hurricane Katrina tore through New Orleans, a bulk of Louisiana's 256th Infantry Brigade and Mississippi's 155th Armored Brigade were deployed to Iraq with most of their equipment. Lieutenant General Blum of the National Guard Bureau cited these missing units and equipment as significantly hindering early search and rescue efforts, costing many American lives in the critical early days. This issue crops up over and over throughout the last 20 years. Shortly before Hurricane Helene ripped through Appalachia, 700 soldiers for Tennessee's 278th Armored Cavalry Regiment were deployed to the Middle East and were unavailable. Who's next? Our seacoast region with a storm surge, or our rivers flooding like those that drowned Montpelier right next door 2 years ago? And while opponents come across my committee concerned about losing refueling aircraft and use the phrase, quote, "Following the Constitution is nice in theory, but it's not necessary anymore." 2 more guardsmen were killed in action in Syria last month. Sergeants Edgar Brian Torres Tovar and Williams Nathaniel Howard of the Iowa National Guard lost their lives on December 13th in Palmyra, Syria. The number one question I saw on social media is, why is the National Guard in Syria? Why indeed? We never even passed an AUMF for Syria, let alone a declaration of war, as it died in the Senate in 2013. And yet, our men and women in uniform are still being sent there into harm's way. Defend the Guard's opponents cite the hefty fiscal note, but multiple members of Congress, including Thomas Massie, Paul Gosar, Senator Rand Paul, reaffirm it is the duty of Congress to fund each state's Guard. If the law is challenged, it will either be overturned or found constitutional. Our Guard remains ready to repel invasion, suppress insurrection, and execute the laws of the Union. Despite these assurances, I know it's impossible to reach into the hearts of everyone here, so there is a pending amendment that says it will not go into effect unless 4 other states pass it, so we won't be the first to jump. So I ask you to press the red and overturn the committee recommendation of ITL and follow through on the legacy of our very own Daniel Webster, who said, quote, "It will be the solemn duty of the state governments to protect their own authority over their own militia and to interpose between their citizens and arbitrary power." And thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request a roll call vote.
Does the member yield for a question?
Yes. Yes.
You may inquire.
Thank you for taking my question. Maybe a two-part question. Do you remember last term when I spoke in favor of this very same bill? And
Yes.
follow up.
Does the member yield for a further
Yes,
question?
I do.
Do you
may
believe,
inquire.
thank you. Do you believe that even though I am very anti-war as you are, I believe that I am also very, very leftist?
I would say so.
Unlike you? Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
thank you.
Last follow-up.
Last one, please.
Thank you.
Does
Yes,
the-
last one.
Hold up.
Oh,
Very last one.
Very
'cause
last
this
one, I
is-
promise.
Because this is not how we do this. Does the member yield for a further question?
final question, Mr. Speaker.
You may inquire one more time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for accepting my question. Do you remember last term when we were under a different presidency and I warned my party that we may experience a president at some point that we didn't like, my party, and that we would be worried about that executive power use of the National Guard?
I do remember that. This problem has, as I said, gone back decades, multiple administrations. I'm not pointing fingers at one or the other. This problem is pervasive with the Congress not doing its job.
Same, I agree, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again. Thank you all for conducting this public hearing. My name is Eric Brakey. I'm a resident of Dover, New Hampshire. As I previously stated in the last hearing, I served 3 terms in the Maine State Senate before I recently made the move to the Live Free or Die state, where I'm happy to be now. And I will mention as well that during my last term in the Maine Senate, the most recent passed legislature, I was the bill sponsor for this very legislation in the state of Maine. So I previously mentioned I'm a big fan of Daniel Webster, and it was nice to walk into this building today. It's actually my very first time participating in a public hearing here in New Hampshire, and it was nice to see that statue to Daniel Webster out front. And as I think about Daniel Webster, and I think about this legislation, I think about what he would have said about it, what he in fact did say on this very issue. He did not say that it was a good idea for state governments to pass legislation like these. The exact quote was, "It will be the solemn duty of state governments to protect their own authority over their own militia and to interpose between their citizens and arbitrary power wielded by the federal government." So that's not my opinion. That's Daniel Webster's opinion, that it is the solemn duty of this legislature to pass legislation like this in defense of your state National Guard. It's been well over 2 decades now since the dawn of the War on Terror. I find it very interesting sitting here listening to some of the arguments against this legislation. But what's particularly interesting is the arguments that I am not hearing. I'm not hearing from anyone arguments we may have heard maybe even a decade ago, that these wars that our state National Guardsmen from the various 50 states have accounted for almost half of the troops on the ground in these wars in the Middle East. I don't hear the arguments that these are wars for freedom, for democracy, for some noble purpose. I don't hear the arguments that there are clearly defined missions which we clearly owe to those we put into positions where they're risking their lives. I don't hear arguments in favor of the merits of these wars that we're sending our men and women in uniform off to fight in. What I hear is, well, what about money? I think it's been argued well that I think a lot of the threats to money are somewhat of a paper tiger. But you know, one thing I've always long admired from across the border in the state of Maine was even on what seems like small, almost trivial matters of individual human liberty, New Hampshire has always kind of stood strong against the federal government and saying, no, we will not make those sacrifices for federal funds. I think about even something as trivial as mandatory seatbelt laws for adults. New Hampshire is the only state in the union that told the federal government, go take your federal highway funds and stuff it. We're not going to infringe on the liberties of our adult citizens to make these choices for themselves. I asked Grok how much is lost a year, about 3.7 million, according to AI. I don't know if that's accurate or not. And aren't the lives of our men and women in uniform worth at least 15 times of the little piece of freedom on whether or not to wear a seatbelt? If we're willing to say to the federal government, we're standing on a principle for the liberties of our citizens, in that case, should that not apply even more so here? But let's talk about the Constitution, because I think there were a lot of arguments around the Constitution made here. I think it's very worth understanding, zeroing in on what specifically the Constitution says about this. The Constitution says that the federal government may mobilize the militias, which we now call the National Guard, under 3 circumstances and 3 circumstances alone: to suppress insurrection, to repel invasion, to enforce the laws of the Union. And to take an example that was used previously by the bill sponsor, Representative Tom Mannion of Syria, a war that we had been engaged in now for over 10 years without even a clear AUMF or clear authorization. What is the constitutional justification for having National Guard troops in a conflict like that? Were we suppressing an insurrection? Actually, the mission in Syria was to foment an insurrection and to foment a civil war against the established government there. Was it to repel an invasion? Well, there was an invasion, but we weren't the ones repelling it. We were not invited there. Was it to enforce a law of the Union? It very well could have been, if there had been a congressional declaration of war as the Constitution requires. Even if you accept the argument of an AUMF covering that requirement, which I don't accept, it's very clear there was no AUMF that covered this, because they point to the 2001 AUMF, which was passed in the aftermath of the 9/11 Twin Tower attacks when we were attacked by Al-Qaeda. Presumably this is to fight the folks who attacked us on that terrible day, and yet we actively gave weapons and aid and comfort to Al-Qaeda forces in Syria. So it's hard to imagine how that AUMF could apply to that situation. James Madison spoke eloquently about the need, and with studied care, why they separated the power to declare war from the power to wage war, because the executive has the most to gain in times of war. This principle has been totally lost in recent history. We've heard about the Supremacy Clause and how the Supremacy Clause supposedly means we need to bow down in deference to everything the federal government mandates on us. But that's not how to properly understand the Supremacy Clause. They have supremacy over powers that are explicitly granted to them, the specific enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, which includes the power to declare war. If they declared war, we would be subject to the Supremacy Clause. But so long as they do not declare war, that does not apply here. The fact of the matter is Congress won't do its job because it's very convenient not to. The last time, even the AUMF on the war in Iraq, when it was voted on, there was some mechanism for people to look at people's voting records and to hold representatives accountable in election season if they found that to be a not very prudent course of action. And politicians did lose their jobs in the aftermath of that. In fact, Hillary Clinton didn't become president because of that. Instead, you got a rookie U.S. senator from Illinois, Barack Obama, on that particular issue, won the primary. So there was a chilling effect sent throughout Congress. We don't want to ever vote on war ever again. But it's really nice to keep collecting checks from the companies that are making money on these wars. And so what we've seen over the course of the last 2 decades are situations like we saw revealed in the Afghanistan papers of self-licking ice cream cones. Forever wars that just go on and on and on with no clear mission whatsoever. And the price is paid not just by the U.S. taxpayers, but by our soldiers who we send off without clear missions. I remember a good friend of mine who I worked with on this legislation in the state of Maine. His name was Sergeant Aaron Rollins. He had served in Iraq in the Maine Army National Guard. And on one fateful day, their vehicle hit a roadside bomb, and one of his companions was tragically killed that day, sitting in the seat where he normally would have been seated himself. I remember after the public hearing in Maine 2 years ago when the Adjutant General made, I think, similar arguments to what we've heard today about concerns about money. After that, Sergeant Rollins turned to me and just said, you know, I wish that the Adjutant General would say that to my mother, my friend's mother's face, that his death was worth it because the state got a few extra Humvees out of the deal. I don't think that that is an argument we would accept in many other situations where there are significant moral questions at stake. If I know there are wide-ranging opinions on other issues like abortion, you know, would we, whatever someone's moral conviction is on an issue like abortion, would we overthrow that moral opinion if the federal government started throwing money around one way or the other? I don't think so.
If you need to suspend for a moment.
Yes.
I think we're all tracking your point about the government's role in decision-making and financing in abortion. We're getting a little bit off the focus on this particular measure. There may be a couple of questions for you, but I want to give you a chance to finish. We still have 5 other folks that we want to give some time to.
Understood. I appreciate that. I will wrap up. Trying to make an analogy, but I understand the concern there. I'll just close by saying, you know, we are at a point, the incoming Secretary of Defense, or at least who has been appointed, and the incoming National Intelligence Director who has been appointed both support this legislation or have been on record in support of it. I think now is the time to really lay down this principle on the state level. And I hear what people say, that wouldn't it be nice if this could be solved on the federal level, but there's a convergence of interests that don't want this to be solved on the federal level. And so therefore, as Daniel Webster told us, it is the solemn duty of the states to interpose and to stand up for our men and women in uniform. And so I certainly, as a new resident of New Hampshire, I would ask you to do your solemn duty and to support this legislation. Thank you. If there are questions, I'm happy to take them or to defer to others.
I do have a quick question. I naturally am curious. You shared that you were a state senator and you introduced a similar measure or the same measure in Maine. What happened in Maine when you introduced this in the Maine Senate?
Now, there's a long history of this in Maine. It was actually, I'll give you the short.
Yeah, give us the short answer.
All right. Maine was the first state to ever put this in 2011. 2 years ago, it received a third of the House of Representatives voted in support of the bill with bipartisan support. But there's still a lot more work that needs to be done in Maine and other states. But I think it would be very poetic and also very righteous if New Hampshire followed Daniel Webster's call and was the first.
Other questions? Representative Mandelbaum?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brakey, I don't want to get too into the semantic weeds about your seatbelt law analogy. But ultimately, whether or not you wear a seatbelt, you are the person who faces the most proximate impact. So if you're in an accident, you will likely either stay seated or perhaps go through the windshield, but that's on you. I'm wondering, do you feel your argument holds up, given that we could argue that the National Guard is a collective good? So it's not just about the person wearing this, it's the person wearing the seatbelt isn't the only person affected. It's when you have National Guard members deployed, they're doing work on behalf of the United States.
I would just say I think it's far more important than any seatbelt law. I think that it is, I think that we have a solemn duty to the men and women who sign up to serve, who are in a position where they cannot speak up, they cannot question their orders, they are given commands to go. It is our solemn duty as the citizens of the state and this country to hold accountable the officials who make these decisions when those decisions are made poorly. And right now, there is no accountability measure because our elected officials don't vote, they don't do their jobs. And so I would say it's even more important.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So is the difference in your mind more that just as folks can choose to wear a seatbelt, folks in the National, or choose not to, folks in the National Guard do not have decision-making power when it comes to being deployed.
Once they sign up to serve their state in the state National Guard, they do not have much say about these deployments. Therefore, it is the responsibility of the citizenry to make sure that the system is functioning in an accountable fashion.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for that testimony.